The herb garden outside the village was very huge, and inside were planted spirit herbs that Apothecary had found in great ruins. The villagers were long eyeing the herbs. However, Apothecary had bred various dangerous little bugs in the herb garden, therefore no one dared to enter it. The people in great ruins were scarce, thus there were plenty of spirit herbs that were valuable as well. Over these years, Apothecary had gathered countless of rare and unique herbs back, replanting them in the herb garden. He had rarely used these spirit herbs and had finally decided to use them all on Qin Mu. It's important to know that with his high standard, all these spirit herbs he had gathered were all very valuable. Putting out any stock outside for sale would easily raise a commotion. Therefore, Apothecary had indeed went all in. As the bonfire slowly extinguished, the villagers all went back to their houses to rest. Qin Mu also went back into his room and fell into deep sleep shortly. Granny C covered him in a blanket and looked at the young boy's sleeping face, revealing a loving smile. "My Mu, no matter if you have overlord body or not, you will always be the child I raised, and I will not let anyone or anything hurt you." She was still pretty wise and could see many things from the expression of village chief and Apothecary during the bonfire celebration, just that she did not expose them. She scampered back into the room with her tiny feet to sleep. The next day, Blind carried his bamboo cane and excitedly rushed into the house and called, "Moor, quickly get up. It's morning, Apothecary. I still haven't got out of bed, how dare you come to peep?" Hearing a great crash, Qin Mu opened up his sleepy eyes and saw Blind flying out from Granny C's room. Blind flew through the sky in an arc and landed somewhere outside the village. "Grandpa Blind sure is impressive," Qin Mu exclaimed in admiration as he saw Blind still holding onto his bamboo cane and sitting cross-legged, flying through the sky with an innocent face. Qin Mu woke up and started washing up before making breakfast to eat together with Granny C. After washing the bowls and spoons, he saw Blind running back excitedly from outside the village and shouted, "Damned old woman, what a ruthless kick! I almost couldn't find my way back. Moor, come over quickly, Apothecary had made some elixir for you." Granny C had a malicious face and gave Blind a stare before getting up to leave unsteadily. "I shall go border Dragon City to do some trading. Blind, I shall leave Moor to you these few days. If I come back and find out that he has lost even a single strand of hair, you will answer to me. Old Ma, is the cow carriage ready? Cripple, is the bamboo raft tied in place?" Qin Mu immediately followed Blind to Apothecary's workshop and had smelt a strong medicinal smell before he even got in. He then saw a huge cauldron hanging in the air with a few vermilion-colored birds flying around it. Between the birds' feathers, the flames blazed furiously and heated the cauldron red-hot on the outside, while on the inside were bubbling sounds. "Moor, this is your medicine." Seeing that Qin Mu had arrived, Apothecary took out the last herb, which was a piece of green leaf, and threw it into the huge cauldron. As the leaf just touched the medicinal water, the bubbling water immediately started to become extremely thick. While doing it, Apothecary gave a push and the huge cauldron started to spin rapidly. Following that, clattering sounds started to come out from the cauldron as the full pot of medicine actually became half pot of white-colored medicine pills. As the cauldron continued to spin, the pills started to collide with each other and gave out the crisp sound of metal. Apothecary waved his hands and the few vermilion-colored bird flew out from the window and vanished. As the cauldron reached the floor, Qin Mu was speechless. "Grandpa Apothecary, I have to eat so many medicinal pills today? If you ate all of them, you would be dead," Apothecary said evenly. "This cauldron of medicine of mine is made from all the highest quality spirit herbs. Even though it's just a low-level vitality reinforcement pill, one pill wins 100 pills from other apothecaries. You only can eat 1 to 2 pills at a time and no more than that." Qin Mu was skeptical. Apothecary also fed him some strange and weird medicines before, however, every time it had always been a huge bowl of something filled to the brim, whereas now he only had to eat 1 pill. Was the medicinal energy in this pill that strong? Blind was also skeptical and said, "The swindlers outside also say that one of their pills was equivalent to 100 pills of others. Is your medicine really that strong? However, I must say these medicines are pretty fragrant." Apothecary laughed sinisterly. "Why don't you try eating the entire cauldron of medicine? Moor, how about you grab a bunch to try?" Blind tried to stir him up. However, Qin Mu absolutely would not get stirred up by him and only brought a pill to his mouth. As the spirit pill entered his stomach, he immediately felt something wrong. He felt like thousands of fire, water, gold and wood dragons overturning the seas and rivers in his belly, making his body to become tall, short, fat and thin from time to time. Sometimes he felt so cold that his body would form a layer of ice, while other times he felt so hot that burning smoke would come out of his clothes. Sometimes his clothes would start to germinate and the hair on the beast's skin of his clothes would grow crazily, while other times, his clothes would get dyed in a layer of metal color and even his skin would become hard, as if he was entirely made up of metal. The more frightening thing was, all the different types of symptoms burst out together, causing a great deal of pain to Qin Mu. He gave a silent groan and immediately used Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique to dissolve the medicinal energy by his vital qi. Blind totally changed his look and cried out, "Apothecary, your vitality reinforcement pill seems to be different from ordinary vitality reinforcement pill." That's right. A normal vitality reinforcement pill is separated into 4 kinds: fire vitality pill, water vitality pill, gold vitality pill, and wood vitality pill. Apothecary gave a sinister smile. Vitality reinforcement pill is directed at the 4 different vital qi attributes of the 4 great spirit bodies, in order to nourish the spirit body's vital qi. However, Qin Mu's overlord body has no attributes, thus, I have come up with a compromise method to refine spirit herbs with all 4 attributes into a vitality reinforcement pill that contains all 4 attributes. Maybe it would be able to arouse the power of the overlord body's vital qi. Only Qin Mu's overlord body's vital qi could absorb this kind of spirit pill. If you had eaten the entire cauldron of vitality reinforcement pill just now, Blind gave an uncontrollable shiver. If he had eaten them, the conflict between 4 different attributes of vital qi would probably have dissipated his power by 20 to 30%. Of course, this would happen only if he had eaten the entire cauldron of vitality reinforcement pill. Eating only 1 pill would not hurt him much. Apothecary, is what you refined a tonic or a toxic? Blind mumbled. Suddenly Qin Mu gave a loud shout and started to sprint crazily, disappearing in a twinkling of an eye. Blind couldn't help but became worried. The 4 attributes conflict each other. Would Muir be fine? There's no need to worry. He is digesting the medicinal energy. Apothecary actually was uneasy inside while he was saying so. After all, it was his first time improving the vitality reinforcement pill and also his first time refining the improved vitality reinforcement pill. As Qin Mu was the first to try, Apothecary was also unsure how much medicinal energy in the pill, if it had any side effects or if the person who ate it would die or not. Of course, he could never say these out or else Granny C would come for his life. In the forest far away, Qin Mu's roar rang out as the trees collapsed one by one and created loud rumbling noises. The corners of Apothecary's eyes twitched as he said, "It's going to be fine, don't worry. Listen, he is currently vigorous and lively." Blind gave a sigh. Young people sure are full of energy. In the forest, Qin Mu sprinted among the trees. His fists and feet were as fast as lightning as he kicked and punched towards the various huge trees. A huge tree that required 2 people to hug could only take 3 punches and 2 kicks before getting broken into half by him. Unbearable. It's too unbearable. The medicinal energy of Apothecary's vitality reinforcement pill was simply too strong. Despite using Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique while sprinting, he was still unable to dissolve it and felt like his body was about to explode. He could only exhibit the martial arts that Cripple and Old Ma had taught him to vent out the excess medicinal energy. In his spirit embryo divine treasure, the tiny human-shaped spirit embryo was also frantically doing breathing exercises to absorb the vital qi rushing forth and purifying it. This tiny Qin Mu was also so weary that he was gasping for breaths. "Die, young-un!" Suddenly, the forest trembled as a furious devil ape stood up within the forest and bellowed in rage. Fists the size of small mountains flew ruthlessly toward Qin Mu, who was destroying the forest. So it turned out that the medicinal energy had got to Qin Mu's head, thus, he unwittingly came into the devil ape's territory again. Seeing that it was the young-un who had trespassed into his territory again, it became exceptionally furious, meeting his foe and attacked Qin Mu without explanation at once. Qin Mu's eyes were scarlet red as he suddenly raised his head. The medicinal energy in his body furiously broke out and caused the vital qi in his entire body to burst to the brim. Qin Mu then leaped forward and gave a punch towards the devil ape's fist. Boom! A deafening sound rang out as Qin Mu flew backwards and broke several huge trees in his path. The devil ape leaped towards him excitedly and raised its legs for a sweeping kick towards Qin Mu, who had just landed on the ground. The huge and thick leg was like a large pitch-black pillar crushing towards him. In an instant, Qin Mu gave a shout and gave countless of kicks on the devil ape's extremely thick leg at the point where muscles and tendons connects. The devil ape immediately felt the strength vanish from its leg, so it quickly followed up with another punch from the sky. Qin Mu raised his arms to block and was once again forced to retreat. Fighting close combat with Qin Mu, the devil ape's punches and kicks would rake up gales that caused a whooshing sound. As it attacked Qin Mu seemed to become hysterical and actually began to fight hand-to-hand with this strange beast. Even when he was at a disadvantage, he didn't show the slightest fear. The devil ape became all the more furious and became hysterical as well. Every punch and kick towards Qin Mu became heavier and heavier. One human and one ape, one big and one small. Everywhere they went, the trees would collapse and shattered rocks would fly. Suddenly, Qin Mu leaped into the sky as if he was flying and started to sprint on the devil ape's arm, reaching his face in the next moment. Thousand-armed Buddha. His two arms looked as if they became hundreds of arms as they left after images, while the few hundreds punches landed right on the devil ape's soft and drooping nose in succession. The devil ape teared in pain and fell on its back. It swung its huge palm and ruthlessly smacked Qin Mu away. Turning over its body to crawl up, it turned its gaze over with his nose still bleeding. Seeing Qin Mu getting buried in the cliff after getting smacked by it, the devil ape couldn't help being satisfied. Young undead. Suddenly, the young un who was buried in the cliff suddenly twitched, and with both his hands propping him, he pulled himself out from the crater and frantically rushed to it. The devil ape jumped in a shock and beat his chest with its two fists, bellowing as it leaped toward Qin Mu. Die! Young un! In the valley below the cliff, sounds of heavy impact kept sounding out, causing the tree leaves to sway continuously from the tremors. The birds in the mountains also flapped their wings and flew away, not daring to stay near. In the valley, the devil ape leaped forward while hugging onto a huge boulder, smashing it towards Qin Mu in midair. Qin Mu agilely dodged it, and when the devil ape saw that it had missed, it picked up another huge boulder wanting to smash again. However, Qin Mu leaped onto the huge boulder and bounced onto its nose again, and giving it another palm strike. Thunderclap 8th strike 3rd form, Tempest of the 9 Dragons. This palm of his contained 9 layers of force. The first force bursting forth from the heart of his palm was like the impact of a raging dragon, causing the devil ape to fall backwards. Qin Mu's shoulders and hips then moved together. With the strength flowing through his entire body, he directed all his muscles to centralize at the center of the palm. With the second burst of force, the devil ape's head was smacked onto the ground, splitting the rocks under its head. The body muscles of Qin Mu looked like a coiling and squirming dragon. With the third explosion of force from Tempest of the 9 Dragons, the split rocks began to shatter. His muscles throbbed tremendously, and the fourth force burst forth, burying half of the demon ape's head into the ground. The fifth force from Tempest of the 9 Dragons exploded, and a deep rumble came from the ground as the devil ape's head had fully sunk below the ground. The sixth force of Tempest of the 9 Dragons was like the impact of 6 dragons. However, just as the force burst forth, the devil ape had already reacted to it, and his small mountain-like fist struck from the side and smacked Qin Mu away like a fly. Qin Mu landed on the ground tumbling. The devil ape struggled to pull its head out and gave it a few shakes to get rid of the debris in his thick hair. On the other side, Qin Mu flipped his body up and rushed over the ape again like the wind. Frightened and upset, the devil ape thought for a while and leaped onto the cliff, squatting there and waving its hand. Young un, no. With his fleeting footsteps, Qin Mu rushed forward and ran up the precipitous cliff from the bottom to the top and continued to attack the devil ape. The devil ape flew into a rage. The human and ape continued to leap around on the cliff, shooting rocks in random directions as they fought. A great deal of time later, the medicinal energy in Qin Mu's body was gradually used up. The devil ape was also so exhausted it could not even take another step. The human and ape were both gasping for breaths and laid there unable to move. 5 minutes later, Qin Mu caught his breath and sat up to do breathing exercises to readjust himself. He was elated when he found out his vital qi had a great improvement in such a short time. His vital chi had become more tenacious and could reach every single corner of his body unimpeded. His body was also covered in a lot of filth, which was probably because of the fight against the demon ape, arousing the medicinal energy which strengthened his vital chi to refine more impurities in his body. Qin Mu gave a flick and the screeching sound sounded out as if it was an arrow breaking through the air. The devil ape was startled and immediately sat up in a defensive position. Qin Mu stretched his body comfortably and felt the soreness in his muscles. He shook his head. "Let's not fight anymore." The devil ape understood his words and gave a sigh of relief. It stretched out his hand and plucked out a huge tree with the width of an arm. It swept up a bunch of tree leaves and slowly chewed them in its mouth before placing the tree in front of Qin Mu, speaking in a low and muffled voice. "Eat, young-un." Qin Mu plucked a bright red fruit and skinned it before eating. The sweetness and refreshing taste moistened his throat. Devil ape looked at him at disdain and resented him for only eating a little. It then patted its chest strongly. "Eat, strong." Beaten by the devil ape, Qin Mu's face was full of bruises. He endured the pain in his body as he stood up to execute Thunderclap 8 strikes in front of it before patting his own chest. "Train strong." Devil ape rolled its eye and continued to slowly eat the tree leaf and replied in despised, "Believe ghost." After Qin Mu had finished resting, he leaped off the cliff and ran of the walls of the cliff. "Fight tomorrow." Blinking its eyes, the devil ape waited until Qin Mu was far away before jumping to his feet and started to imitate Qin Mu's movements earlier. Even though his Thunderclap 8 strikes was very crude, it still had extraordinary strength after all and actually managed to execute some grace of Thunderclap 8 strikes, striking out the sounds of wind and lightning. Devil was stunned and revealed an expression of ecstasy. It then continued to strike until the whole mountain cliff was filled with the sounds of wind and shouted, "Strong! Strong! Strong!" When Qin Mu returned to the village, Apothecary anxiously came up to check on his body and smeared some ointments on his face, asking, "Is there any unusual symptoms?" Qin nodded his head and made Apothecary even more nervous. "Grandpa Apothecary's spirit pills sure are effective. My vital chi had become even stronger." Qin Mu replied. Apothecary finally gave a sigh of relief and smiled. "These spirit pills are indeed effective for the overlord body. As long as you don't die from eating them, it means that my approach is correct. Hold on to this cauldron of pills first while I go mull over other prescriptions." Finished saying, he left excitedly. Blind propped himself over with his bamboo cane and smiled. "Are you tired, Muir? If you are, I can teach you a first-class eye technique." Qin Mu gave a cough and replied, "Grandpa Blind, I'm over here. Over there is the toilet." Blind turned over and faced Butcher, who was suntanning on the lower millstone. "I pondered over it for a long time. Since your overlord body doesn't have any attributes, you can't cultivate my techniques. However, this eye technique doesn't require vital chi with attributes, therefore the overlord body's vital chi can also cultivate. Come with me, my technique is called 9 Heavens Eyes Awakening Skill." Qin Mu had a headache as he always felt that Blind was somewhat unreliable, but he still forced himself to follow Blind. He was extremely bewildered when Blind said that he wanted to teach him 9 Heavens Eyes Awakening Skill, but did not teach him how to train his eyes. Instead, he had brought him to observe and study the 4 stone statues in the villages. The 2 of them sat in front of the stone statue located at the east corner. Even with Blind's empty eye sockets, he also gazed at the stone statue as if he could see something. Qin Mu knew everyone in the village was very weird. Even the stone statues at the 4 corners of the village were weird. In disabled elderly village, no one wasn't weird. Even though these 4 stone statues were not tall, they were extremely heavy. They were so frighteningly heavy that even Qin Mu could not sway them at all. His current strength was very great, especially after he had consumed the blood of the 4 spirits. Recently, with vital chi body refinement cleansing his body and marrow, his body had become stronger and stronger, yet he was still unable to move the stone statue the slightest inch. When he was young, he would often climb up the statues to play, but Granny C and the rest would always grab him down, telling him not to be disrespectful to the stone statues. During New Year and other festivities, Granny C and the rest would still put out offerings for the stone statues and light a few incense sticks, praying to the statues for blessing the villagers' lives and the village with peace. The 4 statues were not sculptures of human, they only had human-like figures. The southern stone statue had a bird head and was crouching on a stone pillar. With its hands supporting on its knees, there were 2 wings sculpted out from his back as if he was ready to fly off. At the north of the village, the stone statue was a tortoise-back old man with a horsetail whisk in his hand. However, the horsetail whisk was sculpted into a huge snow-white snake coming out from the horsetail whisk handle. The white snake was coiled around the body of the tortoise-back old man as its head looked far into the distance. At the west side of the village, the stone statue was a sculpture of a woman wearing a plume feather crown with a crouching tiger under her legs. The female sculpture was also very weird. In the middle of brow, another eye was sculpted there. However, a bird nest was sculpted inside of the eye where there were 3 little birds inside. Whereas right in front of him was the stone statue in the east corner of the village, which was a dragon head humanoid. On its body was a herb basket with a few herbs still inside. Blind asked him to observe the stone statue carefully. However, Qin Mu had seen the stone statue countless of times in the past, and had even behaved atrociously by climbing onto the stone statue. He really didn't know what to look for at the statue. "Mu'er, can you lift this stone statue?" Blind asked as he saw Qin Mu being absent-minded. "I can't." Qin Mu shook his head. The stone statue was too heavy. So heavy that it didn't seem to be made of stone. A stone with the height of a human could at most be a few thousand kilograms, and with Qin Mu's current strength, it would be an easy feat for him, but he couldn't move any of the 4 stone statues at all. Blind then kept the conversation interesting. "Do you know why the stone statues are so heavy?" Qin Mu shook his head again. "I don't know. The stone statue actually isn't heavy, not at all." Blind's expression remained calm. What is heavy is not the stone but what was sculpted from the stone. Qin Mu was puzzled. "Isn't it still stone after sculpting it from a stone?" Blind continued. "For example, when learning calligraphy and painting from deaf, your paintings and writings are a load of crap which are worthless. However, deaf's paintings and writings can't even be bought with 10,000 taels of gold. Both paintings were made from paper and ink, yet why is deaf's painting more valuable?" Qin Mu half understood what Blind had said, but deaf's painting really had an extraordinary appeal in it, which was way better than his. Blind lifted his bamboo cane and pointed. If these stone statues were sculpted by an ordinary person, it wouldn't be heavy at all. However, since the person who sculpted them comes from an extraordinary background and the contents of the sculptures are even more frightening, the weight of these stone statues can't be measured with common logic. Carrying a stone statue is equivalent to... His expression turned eccentric before continuing after a while, is equivalent to carrying a god. Qin Mu's heart wavered. "Carrying a stone statue is equivalent to carrying a god?" Blind replied indifferently. "Carrying a god while walking is extremely heavy. Back then when Granny C and the rest wanted to save you, Old Ma was the one who carried a stone statue and brought Granny C to the riverside. Although it was such a short distance, Old Ma almost collapsed from exhaustion even with his strength." Qin Mu's scalp turned numb. The stone statues in the village were that heavy? Who was the one who had sculpted these stone statues? Who were the gods sculpted on the stone statues? Why do they become so heavy when sculpted in these appearances? Will he be hated by the gods when he had defecated and pissed on them while he was still a child? "Don't you worry, the god that had sculpted these sculptures is long dead. Mu'er, the reason I had made you observe the stone statues is to train your eyes. What I want you to see isn't just an ordinary stone statue, but the image that a god had crafted for gods." Blind's voice was so loud that even the deaf could hear him, causing Qin Mu's eardrums to ring. Blind faced the bamboo basket beside the stone statue and shouted, "Mu'er, what the 9 Heaven Eye Awakening skill opens are your god eyes, and since they are called god eyes, you obviously have to see God. Use your eyes to see God, to see the God's powers, God's grace, God's aura, God's appearance, and the God's spirit." Qin Mu's heart and mind trembled. To see God? To see the God in the stone statue. Allow your vital chi to enter your eyes and open the first heaven of your own ignorance. Blind's bamboo cane gently tapped on Qin Mu's heart, and it was unusually accurate this time. Qin Mu immediately felt his vital chi circulating endlessly and rushed toward his own eyes. Cultivating the eyes was extremely dangerous. Despite Qin Mu's vital chi had started to refine out impurities and excess fats from his body, the eyes were still the most difficult part to train. It could almost be classified as a forbidden area, as one could turn blind on the slightest mistake. Qin Mu had once asked village chief how to train his eyes, but village chief did not say much and only told him not to try refining his eyes rashly. However, Blind had instead pushed Qin Mu's vital qi towards his eyes in a violent and overbearing momentum against common sense. Qin Mu felt a piercing pain from his eyes as his vital qi majestically rushed into his eyes. His vital qi cultivation was extremely thick, but it was compressed finely by Blind's terrifying cultivation. How big could eyes be? However, at this moment, Qin Mu felt as if his eyes had become extremely humongous like the sky. His vital qi was like huge and long dragon entering his eyes that were as wide as the sky. His vital qi then violently surged forward and squirted into the sky like a pillar that was supporting the heaven and earth. The surging vital qi then spread across the entire sky and formed strange markings on the sky that crossed each other to become a net. It was like heaven's net covering the entire sky. The pain earlier had also suddenly vanished and was replaced by an extremely cozy sensation that he had never felt before. Mu'er memorized the image in the sky. That's the first heaven of 9 heavens eye awakening skill. The heaven's Big Dipper formation marking. Blind's voice came from the sky high up. Qin Mu immediately tried to memorize the image by heart. With his vital qi directed by Blind and forming the heaven's Big Dipper formation marking inside his eyes, he could clearly see the path, structure, and details of the formation marking. However, the Big Dipper formation marking was too complex and complicated, thus it required him to take some time to memorize them. Blind directed his vital qi over and over again until Qin Mu's vital qi was almost depleted. He then took his cane away from Qin Mu's heart. "How much have you remembered?" Blind asked. 60 to 70%. Blind gave a pleased expression. It's not an easy feat to memorize 60 to 70% in such a short time. Now recover your vital qi. Qin Mu started sprinting and executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique to allow his vital qi to recover faster. When his cultivation had returned to his pinnacle, Blind continued, "Execute the Big Dipper formation marking that I have taught you and look at the stone statue again to see if it was different from before." Qin Mu immediately directed his vital qi into his eyes and constructed Heaven's Big Dipper with his vital qi. Even though he had only learned 60 to 70% of the formation marking and didn't complete it, the cozy sensation when one could refreshingly see through everything came out again as his vital qi spread all over his eyes. Lifting his head up to look at the stone statue of the Dragon Head Elder, his mind couldn't help trembling. The stone statue, which was once ordinary in front of him, had suddenly become bright and colorful. It was as if the stone statue had come to life and become an indomitable god. He even saw the finest light given off around stone statue. Every fine ray of light brought out the divine grandeur of the stone statue. His mind and spirit immediately suffered the pressure of the stone statue. In his eyes, the stone statue was no longer a stone statue but a living and breathing god. God's spirit, appearance, aura, and power came crashing down on his spirit before overwhelming his entire body, making him unable to resist wanting to kneel down. "Continue looking and don't close your eyes. Don't kneel down either," Blind coldly continued. "Remember how you peed and pooped on the stone statue when you were young? If you dared to do that when you were young, why do you have to kneel down when you become older?" Mu'er, what 9 heavens eye awakening skill awakens aren't just your eyes but your spirit as well, for you to stand strong against all the powerful and the evil. How powerful is a practitioner isn't solely based on the power of his moves. It's more important that the spirit is strong. If your spirit loses to a pile of broken rocks, no matter how powerful you become, you will still be a total failure. Blind knocked his bamboo cane on the ground and shouted, "If you go against the stone statue and withstand its pressure, your spirit will become stronger as well. If you want to have greater power, you must first strengthen your spirit, become your own god, and fear nothing." Beads of sweat rolled down Qin Mu's forehead as he struggled to go against the thought of him kneeling down. The pressure that the stone statue had brought on him was simply too strong and was impossible to resist. Blind told him that there was nothing to be afraid of, but it was impossible for him to do it. Things became totally different after awakening his eyes. When his eyes were not yet opened, the stone statues were just ordinary stone statues, thus he had no qualms peeing and pooping on them. However, when he had opened his eyes, the stone statue was like a god, and any actions, even looking at the god, was counted as a blasphemy. Blind said, It's easy to destroy the god in the temple but difficult to destroy the god in your heart. Do you know who had said this sentence? Qin Mu's spirit was still being intimidated by the stone statue and was unable to answer. The one who had said such a rebellious sentence is the current imperial preceptor of Eternal Peace Empire, the person acclaimed as the #1 man under gods. With awe-inspiring presence, Blind shouted, "Mu, are the gods in your heart are all strange gods and fake gods. Only by destroying them could you erect your own god statue. Even if a real god is right in front of you, you can't kneel down, let alone a stone statue." Blind stabbed his bamboo at the side and loosened his pants, laughing loudly. "Not only you shouldn't kneel, you should pee on it." "Pee on it?" Qin Mu stared blankly. "Pee on a god?" Blind peed at the stone statue and laughed. "That's right, pee on it. When you were young you had peed on it no lesser than 100 times. Why are you afraid now?" Qin Mu gritted his teeth and loosened his pants to pee. A warm sensation flowed out onto the stone statue. This pee was not insignificant. The god statue in Qin Mu's eyes was still divine and full of pressure. However, the feeling that was pressuring his spirit to kneel down had vanished entirely. The old and the young looked at each other and laughed happily. Village chief was at the village entrance suntanning as he heard their laughter. Turning to have a look, he couldn't help but shook his head. Blind is indeed a frivolous genius, to use this kind of method to break the god in Qin Mu's heart and strengthen his spirit. If it was anybody else, they wouldn't have thought of such a weird method. Mu sure is extremely daring to pee along with him. Making Mu pee on the stone statue not only broke the god in Qin Mu's heart but also broke the god in his heart, the god that had taken his eyes away. The spear god is back. He knew why Blind had done this. The bamboo cane was not a cane in Blind's hands but a spear. When Blind had walked into disabled elderly village back then, his body was heavily injured and was in a pathetic state as if he was a beggar covered in filth. However, Blind's footsteps as well as the bamboo cane on his hand were very stable. When he walked into the village, he gave village chief a feeling that raging dragons were sweeping out from all directions. In village chief's eyes, the bearing of Blind was like a pillar supporting the heavens. The only person in the world to have that kind of spear skills and spirit could only be that of Spear God. However, the most powerful point of Spear God was not his spear but his eyes. He had a pair of god eyes and could see through every loopholes of the moves. And now, Blind had imparted the god eyes to Qin Mu. You must first train your eyes to train the spear. And before you train your eyes you have to train your heart. Blind's eyes were god eyes. The stronger the eyes got, the more truth they could see. And the more truth they were able to see, the more you could see how terrifying it was. All the living things in the world were not as simple as they looked. What ordinary humans saw with their naked eyes and what practitioners saw with their awakened eyes were two entirely different worlds. The stone statues in the village seemed ordinary, but practitioners who had awakened their eyes could see gods from these stone statues. These practitioners could also see the gods and devils from all the ruins left behind by them, which were scattered everywhere. As for the Buddha in the temple, ordinary folks could only see a Buddha statue, but for practitioners who had awakened their eyes, they could see a peerless great Buddha, crushing their spirits. If the practitioners didn't have a strong spirit, they would die of fright sooner or later from what they saw. Therefore, as Blind taught Qin Mu to train eyes, he had first taught him to train his spirit, to destroy the image of God in his heart so that he wouldn't be afraid again. Henceforth then could he achieve success. As what Buddhism goes by, if there's a Buddha in your heart, it's hard for you to become Buddha. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had also said, "It's easy to destroy the God in the temple but difficult to destroy the God in your heart." These two kinds of sayings went by the same logic with Blind peeing on the stone statue. The first two methods required one to slowly improve his spirits to destroy the God and Buddha in his heart, step by step. Blind's method was simple, crude and somewhat extreme, however it was effective. When village chief saw Blind for the first time, the atmosphere around him was extremely strong, as if raging dragons were rolling into all directions. However, Blind broke down then, as both his eyes had been dug out. And now Spear God had returned. This was all due to Qin Mu. Ever since the village had this healthy little boy, their resentment had gradually been washed away. To teach 9 Heavens Eye awakening skill to Qin Mu, Blind had to first awaken his god eyes. However, since his god eyes had been dug away, he was only left with his mind's eyes. When Blind was imparting his skill to Qin Mu, Village chief could feel his god eyes awakening, which was actually his god mind's eyes. Having no eyes left, he used his mind as a replacement. Village chief slowly closed his eyes and leisurely laid there under the sun as he thought to himself, God mind's eyes will surpass God eyes and spear god will also surpass that previous spear god. When you walk out of the great ruins one day blind, your enemies will shudder in fear. After Qin Mu had finished peeing, a shiver ran down his spine. He felt his body and mind entirely free from worry. The stone statue could no longer put pressure on his spirit anymore. Looking at the stone statue again, he could see many things he couldn't see previously. It was like that previously his eyes were covered with a veil, causing him to see everything fuzzily. Whereas now that the veil had been lifted, the true colors of the world were shown. He looked at the colors around him greedily. The beauty that he had never discovered before made him so excited that he wanted to cry. Approaching the other stone statues in the village, his spirit was once again overwhelmed. The other 3 stone statues in the village were similar to the dragon head elder stone statue, giving off intense divine rays and extraordinary charm, possessing a sacred aura. However, he could look at them normally now as the stone statues could no longer affect his spirit. 9 Heaven's Eye Awakening skill. Just by cultivating the first heaven had already made him to be wild with joy. What other beautiful sceneries would his eyes see after being upgraded by the next few heavens? Qin Mu took out a copper mirror and took a look at his reflection. In the mirror, his eyes were different from usual as a ring appeared deep inside his pupil. On the ring were strange markings that were like lightning intersecting. The ring gradually became faint and faded away. Qin Mu closed his eyes and directed his vital qi to carefully construct the Heaven's Big Dipper formation marking before opening his eyes once again. He then saw the ring appeared in his eyes once again. This ring was the projection of heaven. If I manage to cultivate 9 Heaven's Eyes Awakening skill, then there should be 9 heaven rings overlapping each other like 10 pupils stacked together. Qin Mu thought to himself. Blind continued to guide him on how to complete the Heaven's Big Dipper formation marking, and after quite some time, Qin Mu finally mastered the entire Big Dipper formation marking. Muir, are you finished with your rest? Butcher jumped down from the lower millstone and grabbed his 2 pig slaughtering knives. If you are done, then it's time to train your knife. Qin Mu acknowledged and rushed towards Butcher after retrieving his pig slaughtering knife. Not long after, Old Ma and Cripple had returned from hunting and immediately took over from Butcher in training Qin Mu. Qin Mu was only let off after he could no longer move from exhaustion. In the evening, Qin Mu went to learn blacksmithing skills from Mute the blacksmith. Mute gave a few hand signs and some unintelligible sounds while Qin Mu nodded in deep thought. What Mute was explaining were the techniques of cultivation. He said cultivation was like blacksmithing. One must pay attention to the different functions of the small flame and big flame. Other than the functions of the flames, you should also know how to quench the metal. You had to temper the metal in cold water to harden it. Wisdom and force, strength and flex, dragon and tiger. These are how the opposite forces complement each other. The more Qin Mu pondered over it, the more he felt logical. He admired Mute for his words, which would allow him to avoid going down many wrong paths. While blacksmithing, Mute taught him to observe fire. While looking at the fire in the furnace, Mute performed a few actions. Qin Mu's eyes brightened and followed what Mute had taught, to observe the fire while circulating his vital qi at the same time. Executing Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, his vital qi circulation was like a small furnace hidden in his chest directing heat to all parts of his body. Qin Mu felt a delightful sensation like his vital qi was burning. At the same time in his spirit embryo divine treasure, his spirit embryo absorbed energy from the sea of light as it did breathing exercises. His spirit embryo also began to change gradually as the vital qi it exhaled got ignited into flames, surrounding it as if it was being bathed in a furnace. Qin Mu was astonished as his spirit embryo also started body refinement. By observing the furnace fire, the spirit embryo had such a mystical transformation that he didn't expect. Mute was also astonished as he sized up Qin Mu curiously. Halfway past midday, Qin Mu felt that the firepower that his spirit embryo could withstand had already reached its limit and immediately stopped observing the fire. Ah! Mute gave 2 hand signs and dunked the red-hot iron strip into the water. As it fizzled and gave off white wisps of smoke, Mute gave another 2 hand signs. Qin Mu's eyes lighted up and observed the water jar in deep thought. The sound of flowing water gradually sounded out from his chest. Along with the babbling sound of water, his vital qi flowed into his spirit embryo divine treasure, and actually became a tiny stream. When it came into contact with his spirit embryo, something magical happened. His vital qi actually started to temper his spirit embryo. He was enjoying himself while his spirit embryo was tempered by fire and water. The next morning, Qin Mu woke up bursting with life. Overflowing with energy, he used the method Mute taught him to cultivate, and it was indeed twice as fast. Let me find that devil ape to fight again. In high spirits, Qin Mu consumed the vitality reinforcement pill and was forced to rush out of the village to vent the medicinal energy. Meanwhile, the devil ape had been waiting for quite some time under the cliff. Lei Yungun. The devil ape cultivated Thunderclap 8 strikes that Qin Mu had imparted to him and had a tremendous boost in strength. Seeing Qin Mu rushing to it, it immediately threw away the tree branch in its mouth and gave a fighting stance while guffawing. Lay flat! Qin Mu rushed forward while the devil ape was like a moving mountain crashing towards him. As it came face to face with Qin Mu, it suddenly executed Spring Thunder on the lonely East Sea. With the whooshing sound of wind getting louder and louder, the move blew down all the surrounding trees with a strong gust. Qin Mu's eyes sparkled and let out a loud roar. He too executed Spring Thunder on the lonely East Sea and clashed with Devil Ape. Boom! A dull explosion rang out as both of them got shot away by their own strengths. When the Devil Ape landed on the ground, it immediately rushed over again with its huge fists breaking through the air, causing the air to vibrate from his attacks. As it continued to punch while moving, the air began to hum from the vibrations. Qin Mu was astonished. The Devil Ape had actually learned the move Thousand-Armed Buddha as well. The Thousand-Armed Buddha the Devil Ape executed was still lack of practice, and the Devil Ape hadn't mastered the subtleties of this move, but it had already mastered the soul of the move. Combined with his extraordinary strength, its Thousand-Armed Buddha looked even more powerful than Qin Mu's. The Devil Ape's body was too strong, stronger beyond belief. After cultivating the Thunderclap 8 strikes, its body had become even stronger. The power of its every punch was terrifying. Having his cultivation and strength tremendously improved yesterday, Qin Mu thought he could beat the Devil Ape half to death after nourishment from his vital qi and vitality reinforcement pill. He totally did not expect that he gained no advantage whatsoever in the fight and was beginning to get overwhelmed. The human and ape begun to strike out wildly and clashed fiercely. Qin Mu's arms started to get sore and numb as he gradually found it harder to withstand Devil Ape's overwhelming attacks. Not long after, his face became bruised and swollen from Devil Ape's beatings. However, the Devil Ape did not take the chance to kill him and instead continued to spar with him while it restrained a portion of his strength. Eat strong! The Devil Ape unleashed another punch which brought the rush of wind that actually contained 9 waves of powers. The move was indeed Thunderclap 8 Strikes third form, Tempest of the 9 Dragons. As it fought with Qin Mu, it also kept nagging Qin Mu to eat more until he was as strong as it. Heaven's eyes awaken. Qin Mu's vital qi surged up into his eyes and constructed the first Heaven Big Dipper formation marking of 9 Heavens Eye Awakening skill. Another layer of pupil seemed to appear immediately in his eyes. Awakening his Heaven's eyes, Qin Mu suddenly felt everything in the world becoming extremely clear, deep and orderly. Even the Devil Ape's punch coming in his way had become magical in his eyes. He could see every hair on the Devil Ape's fist swaying in the air and even could see how every tendon, muscle moved under the Devil Ape's skin as well as the path of its strength. The 9 Heavens Eye Awakening technique that Blind had imparted to him allowed his eyes to see the reality in what he saw. It also allowed him to know well of the disparity in strengths between him and his enemy, as well as to control and steer the strengths in a level that he had never thought of. The instant before Qin Mu's fist met with the Devil Ape's fist, Qin Mu's 5 fingers suddenly flicked out and his fingertips broke through the air, releasing a piercing whoosh like the sound when a bowstring had been released from a strongbow. Thunderclap 8 Strikes Thunder Fingers of the Pipa Player. Old Ma's fist skills didn't entirely consist of fist skills but also finger skills. Thunder Fingers of the Pipa Player was one of the superb finger skills among them. As Qin Mu's first finger had flicked onto the Devil Ape's huge fist, it immediately realized that all the power in its fist had vanished. With Qin Mu's second finger, Devil Ape felt the flexor tendon in his arm vibrating. Qin Mu flicked out his third finger, and the Devil Ape felt the muscles on his arm also began to tremble violently, thus it couldn't help panicking. Qin Mu's fourth finger flicked out and the Devil Ape couldn't control his arms as they lifted upwards, revealing its chest. Finally, Qin Mu flicked his fifth finger on the chest of this humongous creature. Devil Ape only felt as if it was bashed in its chest by a few hundred wild bulls in the great ruins and uncontrollably flew backward. Qin Mu stared blankly. Wasn't Nine Heaven's Eye awakening skill that blind had taught him way too strong? What was strong wasn't his moves but his eyes. Using Heaven's Eyes, he could easily see through the changes and path of Devil Ape's strength. From there he could locate the weakness in Devil Ape's punch, and strike its weakness with the first finger to negate the astonishingly powerful punch. Whoosh! The instant where he got lost in thought, the Devil Ape rose up and punched Qin Mu away. It then leaped in midair and clenched both its fists, mercilessly pounding Qin Mu down. The ground trembled as the place where Qin Mu's body had landed was smashed into a deep pit. The Devil Ape landed back on the ground with a boom and gave another punch into the pit. Before its fist had even reached the pit, Qin Mu flicked another finger onto its fist. The next moment, the Devil Ape's gigantic body flew upwards while Qin Mu leaped up from the pit and caught up with Devil Ape, who was in midair. Tempest of the Nine Dragons. Boom boom boom. A series of explosion sounds rang out as Devil Ape's gigantic body dropped down like a shooting star, crashing down several huge trees in its path. After some time, Qin Mu and the Devil Ape fought their way to the top of the cliff. Gasping for their breaths as they laid down, they already had no more strength to continue fighting. Even though Heaven's Eyes was very powerful, it consumed his vital chi so much that even Qin Mu couldn't tolerate it with his profound cultivation. After resting for some time, Devil Ape sat up and raised his thumb to point at itself. "I, Elder." Qin Mu also sat up and shook his head. "I, Elder. You younger." Devil Ape flew in a rage, stretching out its fist and showing off the lumps on its arm. "I strong." Qin Mu grabbed one of its fingers and swung Devil Ape up before mercilessly smashing it on the ground. "I stronger." Devil Ape flipped its body back up and they both started fighting again. Soon they ran out of strengths again and laid down to catch their breaths. Qin Mu regained some strengths and stood up. Devil Ape also sat up and stared at Qin Mu as he executed Thunderclap 8 strikes on the top of the cliff. Qin Mu had only taught him once yesterday, and it had already learned the basics, having a rough framework. Now Qin Mu exhibited every fine detail in Thunderclap 8 strikes for it to watch, and explained to it the secrets on how to bring out the power of each moves. The Devil Ape learned very fast and managed to master the complete Thunderclap 8 strikes in several hours. Qin Mu's scalp turned numb and suspected that if he kept teaching it, would he still be able to fight against this jumbo? This fellow is also a martial art genius. Could strange beasts be so intelligent? Could it also cultivate? Qin Mu thought for a while and sat down teaching breathing exercise to the Devil Ape, imparting his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to it. Devil Ape imitated him closely and learned the breathing exercise. Overlord Body 3 elixir technique was really the simplest Daoyin technique. Thus its method of circulation was extremely simple, which required only moving and guiding vital chi. Not long later, Devil Ape had basically mastered Daoyin technique and had an even breathing rhythm. This was also partly due to his temperament. Since it was a herbivore, it had quiet disposition and a pure mind, therefore it could master Daoyin technique in such a short time. This fellow really is a martial art genius. Seeing it mastering Daoyin technique so quickly, Qin Mu couldn't help sincerely exclaiming in admiration, "Train well, big fella. I'll find you to spar again tomorrow." Finishing his words, he leaped down from the cliff and ran towards the village. Devil Ape saw him off and sat down once again, whispering, "Young-un." The next several days, Qin Mu every day came to spar with Devil Ape, and after sparring, Devil Ape would treat him to some fruits. On the other hand, Qin Mu would show it how to cultivate and even taught cripples heaven-pilfering divine legs to the Devil Ape. Devil Ape was originally good at fist skills but lacking in leg techniques. However, after learning heaven-pilfering divine legs, its leg skills became extremely crafty, putting Qin Mu at a disadvantage whenever he wasn't careful. Qin Mu's strength increased rapidly while Devil Ape's improvement was also frighteningly fast. It soon attained small success in cultivating vital chi. During sparrings with Qin Mu, if he didn't utilize his heaven's eyes, he was unable to gain the upper hand and would instead fall into a disadvantageous situation. This evening, after fighting with Devil Ape, Qin Mu came to the workshop of Mute the blacksmith to help and observe the fire following what Mute had taught him. In his spirit embryo divine treasure, his vital chi was like fire tempering his spirit embryo. Everything seemed to be similar as usual, but at this moment, golden rays suddenly started pouring into his spirit embryo, as it frantically absorbed them from the golden sea in the divine treasure. Qin Mu was at a loss and totally did not know what was happening. Mute was unable to see what was happening in Qin Mu's spirit embryo, therefore, he naturally didn't know something mystical was happening inside Qin Mu's body. As his spirit embryo absorbed more and more golden rays, the little figure suddenly stopped. The spirit embryo also stopped breathing and exhaling, sinking into silence. Qin Mu tried to mobilize his spirit embryo, but it still remained motionless. Did the spirit embryo die? The young boy felt slightly uneasy. After some time later, his spirit embryo slowly recovered and woke up. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and went back to observe the fire. Right at this moment, he felt his vital chi become extremely scorching. Whenever his spirit embryo exhaled out vital chi, his vital chi would ignite and didn't extinguish even after it flowed out of spirit embryo divine treasure. Qin Mu jumped in shock and immediately stopped observing fire. However, it was too late as his clothes automatically started burning. Mute, who was beside him, immediately lifted the huge water jar and covered it over Qin Mu, extinguishing the fire. Lifting up the water jar, Qin Mu had been drenched like a drowned rat. Mute was stumped and checked the burn marks left on Qin Mu's clothes. He immediately threw down his iron hammer and iron bar, flying straight to village chief making hand signs. Village chief was astonished and immediately called Deaf and Mute to carry him over. Mu, or try observing the fire again. Qin Mu didn't know why was the village chief being so serious, but he observed the fire again anyway. In his spirit embryo divine treasure, his vital chi once again turned into a flaming forge surrounding his spirit embryo. Following that, a heat wave surged out from his body, instantly raising his body temperature. Village chief's eyes sparkled and he continued to guide Qin Mu. Mu'er, focus your mind and don't let it sway. Treat your palm as a knife and show me a hack. With his mind free from thoughts, Qin Mu only had his eyes on the furnace fire in front. His vital chi naturally unleashed as he gave a hack using his hand as a knife. Whoosh! His palm actually ignited on fire just like a flaming sword cutting down.